The Celts, from Europe's dominant people to linguistic extinction. In ancient times, the Celts were one of the most widespread and influential peoples in Europe. From the 8th century BCE, their culture, characterized by distinctive art, social structures, and languages, stretched across vast regions, from the British Isles to the Iberian Peninsula and from the Alps to Asia Minor. Yet today, no country in the world has a Celtic language as its primary tongue. The decline of Celtic languages is a complex story rooted in historical processes of conquest, assimilation, and cultural transformation. The rise of the Celts. The Celts emerged during the Iron Age with their Latin culture, circa 450 BCE to 50 BCE, marking a high point of artistic and technological achievement. They were not a unified empire, but a collection of tribes sharing linguistic and cultural traits. Their languages, part of the Indo-European family, included Gaulish, Celtiberian, and early forms of Irish and Welsh. Celtic tribes thrived as warriors, traders, and farmers, dominating much of Europe before the rise of Rome. The Roman conquest. The decline of Celtic languages began with the expansion of the Roman Empire. By the 1st century BCE, Rome's legions conquered Celtic territories in Gaul, modern-day France, Iberia, and parts of Britain. The Romans imposed Latin as the administrative and cultural language, particularly in urban centers. While some Celtic languages, like Gaulish, persisted for a time, they gradually gave way to Latin, which evolved into the Romance languages, French, Spanish, etc. The Celts in these regions were assimilated into Roman society, adopting Latin for social mobility and economic integration. Meanwhile, Germanic tribes such as the Angles, Saxons, and Franks invaded former Celtic territories, particularly in Britain and Gaul. In Britain, the arrival of Anglo-Saxons in the 5th to 6th centuries pushed Celtic-speaking populations to the fringes, modern-day Wales, Cornwall, and Scotland. Germanic languages, the precursors to English, supplanted Celtic tongues in much of Britain. Survival in the periphery. Celtic languages survived longest in areas less affected by Roman or Germanic influence, such as Ireland, Scotland, Wales, and Brittany. Irish Gaelic, Welsh, and Breton persisted as vibrant languages into the medieval period. However, even these regions faced pressures. In Ireland, Viking invasions and later English colonization from the 12th century onward introduced Norse and English influences. In Wales and Brittany, Norman and French dominance marginalized Celtic languages. The modern era and linguistic decline. By the early modern period, Celtic languages were confined to rural and peripheral communities. The rise of centralized nation-states, such as England and France, accelerated their decline. Policies of linguistic standardization favored dominant languages like English and French. For example, in Ireland, the Great Famine, 1845 to 1852, devastated Gaelic-speaking communities. And British colonial policies, including the promotion of English in schools, further eroded Irish. Similarly, Welsh faced suppression in schools and public life, while Breton was marginalized in favor of French. Industrialization and urbanization also played a role. As people moved to cities for work, they adopted the dominant languages of commerce and administration. Celtic languages, associated with rural life, became less practical, and their speakers often faced social stigma. By the 20th century, languages like Manx, Isle of Man, and Cornish, Cornwall, had effectively died out as native tongues, though revival efforts have since emerged. Revival efforts and modern status. Today, Celtic languages are spoken by small communities, often as second languages. Irish Gaelic is an official language of Ireland, but English dominates everyday use. Welsh has seen a revival, with around 20% of Wales's population speaking it, thanks to education and media initiatives. Scottish Gaelic, Breton, and revived languages like Cornish and Manx have dedicated speakers but remain minority languages. UNESCO classifies most Celtic languages as endangered, reflecting their precarious status. The Celts, once Europe's most widespread people, left an indelible mark on the continent's culture, from their intricate art to their myths and traditions. Yet their languages, once spoken across vast territories, have faded due to centuries of conquest, assimilation, and modernization. While revival efforts offer hope, the story of the Celtic languages serves as a reminder of how historical forces can reshape linguistic landscapes, leaving only traces of once dominant cultures.